take that vote.
Let me also bring in Grover Norquist, the founder and president of Americans for Tax Reform. He's joining us tonight. Grover, good to have you here. Where do you stand on this? I mean, who are you supporting in all of this?
Well, the tactic that was employed, that Ted Cruz said, let's demand a vote in the House to abolish Obamacare, and that anything other than that vote on the continuing resolution was an act of cowardice and appeasement. Well, that's kind of nonsense, because there are many things that Republicans might insist on. The President of the United States wants to increase the debt by another trillion or $2 or $3 trillion. That's not something that should be allowed without some reform in spending. In 2011, we agreed the president could have his $2.5 trillion in additional debt that he'd run up and that he planned to run up, but only if we cut spending $2.5 trillion over a decade, which was agreed to. Those caps happened. The country got real reform. Spending began to come down a bit as a percentage of the economy. So there's some very real things in terms of spending restraint that the country needs. And the only time the president talks to Republicans is when you hit a debt ceiling or a CR. So this is the time we're forced to have this conversation. Does it have to be the one thing that Ted Cruz said on one day? No, and that plan didn't work because Cruz said he was going to get Senate votes for it. Didn't. So now we've moved on to other subjects other than defund Obamacare. But there are lots of questions. Why do the special interests like the big companies get a delay but not average citizens? Why does the president want to defend that?
Charles, where do you see this going? How does this resolve?
Well, I mean, Boehner's going to cave. He has to cave, right? So it's just a matter of how he does it, can he do it in safe face, when he does it. You know, you could easily see a path where this rolls into the debt ceiling debate so that you can have a situation where he can claim that if he gets a concession that it applies to both and not to the one, right? So but he has to at some point cave on this issue. The president is basically saying, you broke it, you fix it. He's not going to debate. He's not going to negotiate on it, and he's never going to give up his signature piece of legislation. So you can just write that off. That is not going to happen. So Boehner just has to figure out, is holding on to his speakership, holding on to his job, more important than 800,000 people who are not going to their job.
But he can hold on to his speakership, actually, though, if he just takes it to the floor for the vote, because, you know, he'll be supported by the Democrats, so then he'll become the bipartisan hero of the hour.
Well, I don't think bipartisan heroes of the hour exist.
But now you're really onto something, because, look, let's face it, we have one of the three branches of government is broken. Our system is not working in this country. This has never happened when one of the three branches of government is totally dysfunctional. Why is it dysfunctional? You've got to go to both parties on that. But at the same time, there is some disproportionality here when one group of people with scorched earth politics refuses to engage in a constructive dialogue about what can we do with health care to make it better.
Isn't one of the reasons that they live, there's now an alternative universe in which people live, and in terms of what they watch, read, listen, the whole kind of media complicity in it as well. The fact that the Ted Cruz wing, in a sense, they are in this echo chamber. It is why, in fact, that Romney's side was so amazed that they lost. They really didn't expect to lose, because they were living in a world where everything was reverberating
what kind
back and
of
forth.
alternative universe is it where 79 senators vote in favor of repealing the medical device tax? Do you know how hard it is to get 79 senators to agree on the climate, on the time of day? And they vote on this, on a non-binding resolution, they agree on this, and yet nothing happens. What kind of parallel universe is that?
Grover, I saw you kind of smiling while Carl was talking. How do you see this resolving?
Well, there are a number of things. The issue that was just brought up, medical devices. A majority of the Democrats in the Senate have voted telling their constituents that they want to get rid of that. When it came up for a vote, the Republicans sent it over. Reid said you have to vote against it. And poor Mary Landrieu and Begich from Alaska, who try and pretend to be moderates in their states, were forced to vote the way Reid told them to. So the Democrats are being put in a very awkward position going into 2014, being told, you can't vote your district, you have to vote what Reid and Obama tell you to. They've cast enough votes in the last week to lose the Senate. And they're going to keep voting against allowing the national parks to open, against NIH to fund. At some point, the Democrats in the Senate are going to tell Reid they're tired of throwing away their careers for his tactics.
Do you see this as the Democrats being in an awkward position?
I think that's laughable. I mean, I think you can't have the Republicans create a crisis and then beg the president to give them cover to crawl out from underneath that crisis. That's ridiculous. I mean, the idea that we are now in this topsy-turvy world where we can argue a position like that, where we can basically sit down with a straight face and say, no, I created this problem, but it is your fault. That is ridiculous.
This is about inside baseball, and it's nuts. Because, look, we have had, let's go back to the Federalist debate. We have had divisions, fissures in our politics, but we've always managed to have a fact-based debate in this country. That's what we have lost. And what we are seeing now, the craziness that is being uttered about who is responsible, there's only one party that is responsible for this government shutdown. This is a factual matter right now. Let's deal with a set of facts. Now, why did the Republicans this group of Republicans want to shut it down? You have to ask them. But let's not start this inside baseball, inside the Beltway media.
I want to give you the thought, and then we got to take a quick break, Grover.
That's not the case.
Before we started all this, the President of the United States said that he would shut the government down if the Republicans this fall didn't agree to massive tax increases and breaking the sequester. That was the opening bid. This nonsense that the Republicans started this, I think Cruz made some tactical mistakes, but the president opened that door. The president has wanted a $1 trillion tax increase every time we came to the table. He didn't get it. I understand the frustration on the part of the left, but they're not going to get their $1 trillion in tax increases, and we are going to get some reforms.
Who cast the votes?
Exactly.
Who cast the votes, Grover?
Well, for 2 years, you had only Democrats in the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They own the entire tax policy and the spending policy.
Who cast the votes?
Who shackled Obamacare to the CR?
Who cast the votes? Let's be factual.
Because what other way do we... But this is the only leverage they have. They don't have a way to bring up the problems with Obamacare.
Whatever the reason is,
here's the ridiculous part about all this. We all know that the shutdown is incredibly unpopular. Republicans know that.
How about destructive?
But Democrats also know that there's huge problems with Obamacare. Democrats know that, and neither party is doing anything.
We're going to continue this discussion.
Let's go back to that.
We will. Grover Norquist, thanks for being on. Let us know what you think. Follow me on Twitter, #AC360 later.